What would you say if you knew you had only months to live? November 16, 1973. Alan Watts died at the age of 58, but something remarkable happened in his final months. Something that would change everything we think we know about death and life. You'd expect fear, regret, maybe desperate attempts to cling to more time. Instead, his final lectures weren't filled with sorrow or spiritual bypassing. They weren't about finding peace with the end. They were about something far more radical. In those last months, as his body weakened, his message became clearer than it had ever been. All the intellectual philosophizing fell away. All the complex Eastern concepts and Buddhist terminology stripped down to something raw, something true. He delivered what might be the most liberating message anyone has ever spoken about the human condition. And here's what makes it haunting. His final message wasn't about dying. It was about the fact that you've never actually been alive the way you think you have. That everything you've been taught about existence is backwards. 1972. Alan Watts was exhausted. Decades of teaching, writing, lecturing, traveling constantly. The weight of being the man who brought Eastern philosophy to the West. The pressure of always having answers. His health was declining. Too much alcohol, too much stress. His heart couldn't keep up with the pace he'd set for himself. But he didn't stop. If anything, his final year intensified. Not in quantity, but in quality, in truth. The man who had spent his life translating ancient wisdom suddenly stopped translating. He stopped being the scholar, the interpreter, the bridge between East and West. He started speaking from direct experience. There's something that happens when a person knows their time is running out. The unnecessary burns away. The performance ends. What's left is essence. And in Watts' case, what remained was a message so simple it sounds almost too simple. But don't mistake simple for easy, because what he said in those final lectures challenges everything. Every assumption you have about yourself. Every goal you're chasing. Every fear you're running from. His friends noticed it. His tone changed. Less playful, less performative. More present. He spoke like a man who had finally stopped seeking. So what was his final message? It wasn't one idea. It was a complete dismantling of how we think about existence. 4 core insights that weave together into something that might just shatter your entire worldview, if you let it. Let's start with the obvious question. What did Alan Watts think about death as he faced it himself? Here's what he said. Death is simply the absence of life, just as black is the absence of light. Read that, not poetic, not comforting, just factual. We've made death into an enemy. The ultimate failure. The thing to be avoided, denied, defeated. Medical science wages war against it. Religion promises escape from it. But Watts saw through this entire charade. Think about an ocean wave. It rises from the sea, crests, crashes, and disappears back into the water. Did the wave die, or did it simply return to what it always was? You are the wave, not separate from the ocean. Not a soul trapped in flesh that escapes when the body fails. You are what the universe is doing right here, right now. And when this particular pattern dissolves, the universe continues doing what it does. Here's what made his final perspective so radically. He wasn't trying to make death okay. He wasn't offering comfort or hope or an afterlife. He was saying you've misunderstood what life is. You think you're a separate thing that has life, that possesses consciousness like you possess a car. But you don't have life. You are life happening, right now. And here's the twist without death, life is meaningless. Listen to music. Every note must end for the next note to begin. Silence between the notes isn't the enemy of music. It is the music. You can't have peaks without valleys. You can't have daylight without night. You can't have something without nothing. We spend our entire lives trying to have the peak without the valley, the pleasure without the pain, the life without the death, and in doing so, we miss the point entirely. The point being it's all one process. The living and the dying aren't opposites. They're the same movement, like breathing in and breathing out. When Watts faced his own death, He didn't transcend this fear through belief or practice. He saw through the illusion that there was ever anything to fear in the first place, because the you that thinks it's going to die never actually existed. But if death isn't the problem we think it is, then what about life? This is where Watt's final message gets really uncomfortable, he said. Life is a musical thing. We're supposed to sing or dance while the music is being played. Think about that. When you dance, what's the point? You don't dance to reach a particular corner of the room. That would be insane. Finally, I made it to the corner. Dancing is complete. You don't listen to a symphony waiting for the final note. You don't play music just to finish the song. The point of dancing is dancing. The point of music is music. The point of life is life. But look at how we actually live. We treat existence like a journey with a destination, like a problem to be solved, a game to be won. Childhood is about getting to adulthood. Education is about getting a degree. The degree is about getting a job. The job is about getting money. The money is about getting security. Security is about finally living. But when is that exactly? When you retire? When you have enough in the bank? When you find the right partner? When you lose the weight? When you achieve the goal? In his final year, Watts became almost brutally honest about this trap. We postpone living while we chase the things we think will allow us to live. Someday, the most dangerous word in human language. Someday I'll be happy. Someday I'll relax. Someday I'll have time to actually be present with my children, my partner, myself. Someday I'll start living. But here's what Watts realized: there is no someday. Not because time runs out, though it does, but because the very structure of getting somewhere is the problem. You're chasing a future that will never arrive, because when it becomes the present, you're already chasing the next future. The carrot always stays the same distance in front of the donkey. This isn't pessimism. This is liberation. Because if life isn't a journey to a destination, if there's nowhere to get to, then you're already here. Right now. This moment. This breath. This is it. Not a step toward it. Not preparation for it. This is it. The music is playing. Are you dancing? Or are you reading the instruction manual on how to dance perfectly someday? So if we're not supposed to be journeying somewhere, what are we supposed to be doing? This is where Watts' message becomes almost mystical, almost impossible to put into words. But he tried. He said, "You are the universe experiencing itself, not part of the universe, not in the universe. You are what the universe is doing at this particular place and time. Think about it. Your body is made of atoms forged in stars billions of years ago. Your thoughts emerge from electrochemical processes that follow the same laws as everything else in nature. Where exactly do you begin and the universe end? You can't find the line because there isn't one. But we live as if there is. We live as if we're separate selves trapped in bodies, trying to control a foreign world. Control. That's what the ego craves. The ego is this sense of being a separate someone who needs to manage, manipulate, and master reality. And we spend our entire lives trying to control things. Control our thoughts. Control our emotions. Control other people. Control outcomes. Control the future. But you were never separate from life to begin with. You're not a puppet master pulling strings. You're part of the puppet show. Actually, you're part of the puppet, the strings, the stage, and the audience. The sense of being a separate controller is itself just another thing that's happening. Another wave in the ocean thinking it's separate from the water. In his final months, Watts talked about surrender differently than he ever had before. Surrender isn't giving up. It's not passive resignation or spiritual bypassing. Surrender is waking up to the fact that there was never anyone separate enough to give up or hold on in the first place. It's not that you should let go of control. It's that you never had it, and this is terrifying to the ego. Because if you're not in control, then who are you? What's left when the illusion of the separate self dissolves? Everything. Everything is left. Not you experiencing everything, just experiencing, happening, being. Life living itself through this particular form called you. Here's the final piece. The one that ties everything together. And it's the most paradoxical thing Watts ever said. The spiritual seeker is the obstacle. Think about it. You're watching this because you're seeking something. Understanding, enlightenment, peace, wisdom. And that seeking itself is what prevents you from recognizing what's already here. You can't get to where you already are. It's like searching everywhere for your glasses while they're on your face. For decades, Watts taught practices, perspectives, philosophies, all designed to help people get enlightenment. But in his final year, something shifted. He stopped teaching how to get there. He started pointing out that there is no there, and there is no you to get there even if there was. This is why all spiritual seeking ultimately fails. Not because we're not trying hard enough, but because the entire structure is backwards. The one who is seeking is the one who believes they're separate, lacking, incomplete, and every spiritual practice they do reinforces that belief. I meditate so that someday I'll be enlightened. But enlightenment isn't a future state, it's the recognition of what's already true. As death approached Watts, all seeking fell away, not because he achieved something, but because the illusion of someone who needed to achieve something dissolved. What remained wasn't some blissed-out state. It was just this. Simple presence, life happening, awareness aware. No one being aware, just awareness. And here's the cruel joke. The moment you try to achieve this simple presence, you've already missed it. Because trying implies a future, a goal. Someone trying to get somewhere. You can't practice being what you already are. You can only recognize it, and recognition doesn't happen through effort. It happens when effort exhausts itself. That's what Watts' final message really was. Not a teaching, not a philosophy, not a practice, a pointing, a gesture toward what's always been here, obscured by our endless seeking. Stop, look, see, you're already home, you never left. So what does this mean for us, for you, watching this right now? We don't need to wait until we're dying to understand what Watts understood. Actually, we can't wait. Because waiting is more seeking, more postponing, more someday. His message isn't about adopting a new belief system. It's not about becoming more spiritual or enlightened. It's about seeing through the illusion that there's someone who needs to become anything. Right now, not later. Now, what if you stopped treating life like a journey for just one moment? What if you stopped trying to control things? What if you stopped seeking peace, enlightenment, happiness, success? What's here when all that stops? Not nothing, everything, the sounds around you, the sensation of breathing, the awareness that's aware of all of it. Not your awareness, just awareness. This is what Watts was pointing to in his final days. Not as something to achieve, as something to recognize. Remember the opening question. What would you say if you knew you had only months to live? Here's what Watts would say, the same thing he'd say with decades to live, because the message doesn't change based on how much time is left. The message is that time itself, the whole concept of time left, is part of the illusion. There's only now, there's only this, not as a spiritual platitude, as literal truth. You've never experienced anything except the present moment. You never will. The past is memory happening now. The future is imagination happening now. Now is all there is, all there ever was, all there ever will be. And in this now you don't need fixing, you don't need improving, you don't need awakening, because you're not separate from existence to begin with. You are existence, temporarily taking the form called you, playing hide and seek with itself. That's the whole point. The universe creates billions of separate forms, each one believing it's isolated, alone, seeking connection, and then recognition. Oh, I was never separate. I am the whole thing experiencing itself through this particular lens. Alan Watts died on November 16, 1973. But what he pointed to in his final message never dies, because it was never born. It's what you are beneath the story of who you think you are. It's here now. It's always been here. Stop seeking it. You're already home. That's the whole point.